Yeah, I think it's really important because you have to have someone that understands that last 10% that there's no numbers for. And like Mendy said, there's instinct. There's a reason that he checks in on us every day because we're human beings. We're not robots. So there's days that we're sick. There's days that something's ailing us. There's days when we didn't get any sleep because we just were 6-hour flight across the country. And so he takes all of that into account and understands the human element of it and understands when to push and when to pull back. And I think when you have somebody like that takes that into account, it's not just a robotic, this is what the numbers say type of approach. It gives you a lot of confidence in winning that game that day. And what it takes and how, just communicating with him. I think it's one of the best attributes of a manager is good communication, and Mendy does that to the very best that I've ever seen. And it really was a culmination of a conversation that Alex and Steve and I had in 2020. They were so gracious to, once they bought the team, they said they had us to their house and each individual player. And they said, how can we make this organization better and one that succeeds on a regular basis and somewhere that players want to come and be at? And for me, it felt like that was the huge step forward from that conversation that we had of we finally have that kind of team. And so to put this team together and these guys that we have and for us to come through and take down the Phillies at home and finish them right there was a huge step for me and something that I had wanted to experience ever since being drafted by the Mets. I think that was one of the most special things about this year is when you ask that question, is it's so hard to answer, because I felt like in that last stretch, I was saying every night, well, I thought I played the best game that I've ever played in, but now tonight topped it, And so that whole experience was extremely special. But I think, for me, I point towards what Francisco was saying, the celebrating after Atlanta, because for me and the guys that have been here, Atlanta's, always been a thorn in our side. And so to do it in Atlanta and clinch there, and then obviously, in Milwaukee with the way that we came back, and we were down to our last strike, and to be able to win that series and celebrate and overcome that hump, and then in Philadelphia or in Citi Field against Philly, just rivals, being the first to clinch at Citi Field and to do it. I mean, those were the most special moments, and just celebrating with your teammates on the field and overcoming those obstacles. It's the greatest feeling in the world.